Hey guys, today we are doing our Family Sunday, and we're doing a little bit different. We are doing a live podcast from our 10 Steps Further podcast, and so we have my buddy Tim Smith here. How you doing, Tim?
I'm doing well.
So Tim, we have been together we've been friends for 25 years. Oh, he's got to turn his mic on, doesn't he? So let me explain to you, we're going to talk a little bit. Oh, look, we've got waters here. All right, thank you very much. I appreciate that. All right. So about 9 months ago, right after Jonathan came, we decided that we were going to start a podcast so maybe we could reach more people. Because there's power in doing a podcast. It doesn't just reach the people in our community, it reaches wherever anybody can download a podcast app and listen to that. And so we just started. And the first idea that we had was that we wanted people to get 10 steps further in their faith. We were thinking those people who made decisions for Christ, maybe we'll do 10 podcasts. And they can get 10 steps further in their faith, and we'll talk about Bible study and prayer and what have you. And God started to use that thing. And so at this point, Jonathan, how many people do we have who are all that we know is that they're downloading the podcast and have subscribed? What's our number right now?
Well, it's got to be more than 250 because we're getting over 1,000 for 4 a month. So
okay, yeah. So and last month we've got
like 1,400, 1,500 per month.
Yeah, all right.
Every month is upward. I mean, even now we're gonna have more this month.
Yeah. So if you look at 10 Steps Further, and you look at the most popular episode is always the last episode because more and more people are listening to this app. So in doing this Family Sunday, we decided to bring Tim in and do this podcast style for a couple reasons. One, it's awesome. And secondly, it's a way for us to not only reach the people in here, but we have people who are listening in the UK. We have people who are in Texas. We have people who are in Nebraska. We just Spokane. A lot of your friends from Spokane.
Yep.
Are around. So we're going to do this 10 Steps Further style today. Now, Tim has been my buddy forever, and we're going to talk to him about parenting. How long have you been on this journey doing as parent coach?
About 25 years.
25 years. Okay. So you guys there's a lot of good things to say. You guys will be able to find his books out there in the courtyard as well. He's got a lot of books. 20 plus books you wrote, right?
21.
21. Wow. So he's pretty much smarter than all of us. So really the podcast will be just us asking Tim questions and Tim answering them.
Quoting my wife.
Right, that's right. Okay, so we're going to roll our intro and we're going to get started for this episode of 10 Steps Further, okay?
10 Steps Further is a podcast designed to help you get 10
let's try that
steps
again.
further along.
Because
If you've been on your journey for 30
Can we start
years
that over?
or 30 minutes,
Can we start that
if
over?
you believe in God
No,
or even
can't
if you're
start that
not
over.
sure He exists, 10 Steps Further is a podcast. 10 Steps Further is a podcast designed to help you get 10
There it
steps
is.
further along your spiritual journey. If you've been on your journey for 30 years or 30 minutes, if you believe in God or even if you're not sure He exists, all we're trying to do is help you get 10 steps further. I'm Jonathan, this is Jack, and we're just taking a walk. Why don't you join us?
We should have just had Ron play that bass line.
I know, that would have been great. That would have been great.
Where's Ron?
That would have been great. We're really racking up the awkward pauses in this today, aren't we? All right.
It's smooth. We ready?
Yeah, we're
Give it a
ready.
shot.
Here
All
we
right.
go.
Here we go. Welcome to another episode of 10 Steps Further. We're here again. We're doing live. We did live on New Year's Eve, and we're going live again in front of our congregation. Say hi, guys.
All right, yeah.
They're with us. And we have a special guest. We got Tim Smith with us. He's written some books on parenting, so we're going to be talking about creating a family brand.
We also have a special guest, Paul Murray.
Paul Murray.
That's right. Hello there. How's it going, son?
He's not as Scottish as he sounds.
Yeah, that's right. Well, actually, the reason why we want to have Paul on this is because when we came up with this idea of family brand, the brand Murray is legendary around here, and so Paul's got some great things to say. I want to focus for a second on Tim, though. Tim and I have been friends 25 plus years.
Since kindergarten.
That's right. That's right. Actually, I knew Tim when he had hair. So I thought they would laugh at that. They didn't. They're all offended. I know. That you can't see this if you're listening online. Tim is wearing what is called a pork pie hat.
Yes, sir.
All right, just recently decided to make the go to shave, right?
Yeah, I started to look like Larry, one of the Three Stooges.
Right.
Because I had a half a head of curly hair. And so I go, that's not the best look. So I shaved it, and then I was in a theater. My wife came in looking for me, and she couldn't find me because she didn't recognize me. She said, you need to wear something distinctive. And I said, hey, it's winter, my head's cold. I'm going to start wearing hats. So that's the backstory on that.
That's great. That's great. We'll put a picture for the podcast on the podcast app for you.
Yeah, that'll work.
That's right. All right.
A link to buy the hats.
Yeah.
'Cause I could use one.
Yeah, Jonathan could also use a hat. That's
got
right.
a guy.
That's right.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's give you. So you've written 21 books on parenting, right?
Yes, sir.
And you also are a family coach.
Right.
All right.
Actually, my last book isn't necessarily on parenting.
Okay, what is your last book?
Do any of you know somebody with ADD? Raise your hands. Okay. Do any of you live with somebody with ADD? Okay. Or work with somebody with ADD?
Yeah, you guys should
Most
probably
of us
raise.
do.
You guys should probably raise your hands.
Yeah. So my friend Steve Arterburn and I wrote a book called Understanding and Loving a Person with ADD because we started to see it all around us in our families and things like that. So it's like how to understand them, how to love them. So it's not necessarily parenting, but it's kind of more of a practical book from a Christian perspective on ADD.
Yeah, that's awesome. So here's the reason why Tim's been here many, many times, right? You've been to Canyon
Yes.
Springs lots and lots of times because we always have lots of parents who need this wisdom. But here's why I had him, because the books that I read on parenting, the ones I went to the most were written by you. Now, they're basically the ones I read they're all out of print now. But they're amazing and the title specifically, like the first book that I ever read of yours was called The Relaxed Parent, which I could never quite understand. I never quite got there. But in the back of that book, there's 100 different ideas for parenting that were really transformational for me in my parenting. And so we're just glad to have you here. Can you guys maybe give Tim a little round of applause? I mean, he hasn't really said anything except that he shaved his head, but thanks for the applause. Okay, so you came up with this topic, creating your family brand.
Yeah, I think I noticed a lot of people out there kind of panicking, looking over their shoulder, trying to decide what they should do as parents, whether they're parents of a newborn, preschooler, elementary, middle school, or high school. We're kind of always looking over our shoulder going, how am I supposed to be a parent? We know we're supposed to keep up our house, because where we live is a nice place to live. We know we're supposed to, not like trash our house or trash our car or trash our kids, but a lot of us don't really know a distinctive brand. And the more I thought about this, I go, it seems like there's a lot of competition and a lot of confusion and a lot of keeping up with the Joneses, or in this case, the Smiths. And so what we want to do is be distinctive and be settled into our brand, because we want to be consistent. We tell our kids, you can be yourself. Don't copy all the other kids. But frankly, we as parents sometimes succumb to parental peer pressure from other parents. But wouldn't it be cool if we had our own brand? We said, "Hey, the Smiths or the Murrays, we're like this, but we don't have to be like that." So it allows us to be distinctive. So I've been speaking on this. I have not written a book on it because I don't fully comprehend it yet. But it's an idea that I think is helpful.
It's making it interesting to me how we're tempted to change who we are based on our culture. I don't know, Jonathan, you've just been here for a year in San Diego culture.
Yeah.
How are you tempted to be different based on this?
I definitely have noticed that my kids have been different. That they're all of them. I mean, and they've done well in this community as well. But one of them who wasn't a good student in Spokane is a much better student in middle school. One of them's way cooler. Like he came and he just instantly went like cool. Like, I'm not a nerd anymore. Like, I'm the new kid and people. But there's some of that just interacting with the kids. But then there's also a little bit of the Spokane culture of just like being proud of it. It's never cold here. So like I'm not going to wear a coat even though it's 40 degrees because I'm from Spokane. It's like, okay, now you're just being stupid. But there's just a little bit of pride of just like, hey, we're outsiders. And
Right?
so I don't know if that answers your question.
No, yeah. You always sort of answer my questions, but that's good. Paul, you've been Paul, you guys have been here for a long time. How do you notice the culture? How do you think this San Diego culture pushes families?
Oh, I just think everybody is, in terms of family, I feel like there are certain benchmarks that people are supposed to attain. You're expected to go to college from high school. That's the expectation. And
You're expected to go to a 4-year college.
Yes, not just a local
That's right.
college. There's an expectation that your kids will go somewhere else for 4 years. For sure, it's also, as kids in high school, the majority will have AP courses, and for whatever reason. And your kids will do really well in education, they'll do well in sports. And I think there's, in your home, in terms of the home, which is also part of, you'll have a beautiful home with beautiful kitchen and
Right.
fancy
Yeah.
countertops.
Yeah.
And you'll drive a very nice car. And by the way, all of this, pretty much my family has none.
Right.
Not good at education. We don't have a fancy house. We don't have a lot of that, but we laugh a lot. But,
That's true.
But that's certainly an expectation.
You know, I remember with our family in 8th grade, my son coming home from a school meeting. He and my wife went to the school meeting, and they were talking to him about how to get on the Yale track in 8th grade. And I remember other parents, freaking out about where their kids are going to go into school and dialing up the pressure, making sure that their kids take AP courses. All of those things affect it, right?
Right.
Sports too.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, if anybody with junior high or high school students, you know that not only is there a hope that your kid will make the team, but they'll be the best on the team. And in order for that to happen, you have to shell out an awful lot of money during the summers and private courses and any kind of coaching, kind of alongside in order to make your kid the kid.
That's right. It's not
insane.
you're not just playing sports to have fun anymore. You're playing sports because you have to excel and you have to be the best. And to even make the team, you got to do speed training and workouts and year round and right?
Right.
It just seems to be the way it is. All right. I'm guessing this is all things that you know, Tim.
Yeah, I wrote about that under my book, Simple Solutions for Families in the Fast Lane.
Yeah.
Because that was our family. Our family was signed up for all those club sports, and I'm trying to take a second out on the house to pay for it. And just can I be really honest with you? I'd like to have some of those weekends back.
Yeah.
We spent a ton of time and a ton of money driving to these places for our daughters who were good at volleyball and track. And so I'd be like, yeah, this is thousands of dollars, thousands of miles. If you go out of town, you got to pay for the hotel. And you get there and you kind of go, for what? For what?
Right.
So our daughter Brooke was a really good athlete and had D1 potential, had schools pursuing her and everything. She told me, Dad, I don't really want to do track or volleyball in college. I'm going, oh no. She could have just said, Dad, I'm not going to be a Christian anymore.
Right.
I'm like, all this time, all this money. And I was her coach in the younger years, so I spent tons of Saturdays. So I had a lot invested in her future and my ego. So really I'm like, hey, it'd be fun because she was the fastest in the school and she was the best on the court. And I'd be like, yeah, that's my daughter out there. So she's basically saying, I'm not going to do that. I'm going, but what about me? And she said, no, Dad, I want to, if I can get into San Diego State, they have a really good advertising department. I just want to go there and focus on my school, get a job, be really involved in a Christian community.
Wow.
Wow, you don't have time for Christian community. You got to get out and support. I didn't say that, but I thought that. And I realized what a hypocrite I was.
Right.
I was still wrapped up in it. It's so insidious, so it's really hard. So my caution would be, that is a lie. It doesn't always add up. Only 1 or 2% of the students who play varsity athletes get a D1 scholarship and go beyond. So it's very, very small.
But you're saying there's a chance.
I'm saying it, there's a chance.
That's true.
It's higher if they play hockey.
So maybe instead of making decisions based on we're hoping that will pay for college, because that's another fear that we carry around too, right? And this place, it's not a bad decision to go to community college and get a couple years of really cheap education and then go on from there. That's actually a really great idea. But we get so focused and our kids won't measure up to other kids. So maybe instead of focusing so much attention on, hey, how are we going to give into that 4-year school? How are they going to be an athlete at that school? Deciding today, what's my brand? What am I going to look like as a family? What are the decisions we're going to make so that our kids have what they actually need? Let me take it to this section. There's this idea of being the Pinterest perfect mom or the Facebook funny dad, which, Paul, out of the 4 of us, you win that. Yeah, in fact, I want you to actually start working more and being on Facebook less. Just want to personally confront you on that right now. But I look at Paul's Facebook page and I'm intimidated by the funny things that you guys do. There is that pressure, not just for your kids, but for you as well to look perfect, right?
Yeah, I don't think I look perfect, but we have a lot of fun. I genuinely don't feel pressure to be perfect. I've never felt like I've had to wrestle with that. There's a reason for that. We'll talk about that, I think, eventually. But I think we just have a great time as a family. That's one of the things we try to do. There's a lot of things I can't provide. I don't have the biggest bank account in this church, and we don't have the fanciest stuff, and we don't go on big trips. We go to 7-Eleven. There's a lot of things we don't
Slurpee
do.
Day, right?
Right?
Free
Yeah.
Slurpee Day once a year.
Yes, that's it.
my
And so, but we laugh a lot, and my kids like to videotape and record stuff. We record things on iPhones all the time, and every once in a while they're like, "That'd be funny to post." And so
Yeah.
that's what we do.
But there are other people that look at you and go, man, I can't measure up to that. Tim, what would you say to those people that are trying to be the Pinterest perfect mom or the perfect Facebook family?
Yeah, I think you've probably heard of FOMO, fear of missing out. Fear of missing out, FOMO. They've actually done research on this, and if you spend a lot of time on social media and you're comparing yourself, kind of like our less than perfect selves to their seemingly perfect selves or their idea selves of other people, then that gap between their ideal and our real, that gap, it's a source of depression for a lot of people, including our children, teenagers, college-age students, and parents. So if we spend too much time with that perspective on, hey, how do I compare? Because, let me take you back. Since we're at middle school, think through those painful years of middle school where we spend a lot of time comparing ourselves. You're going, oh, great, this is really depressing. But that's what it's like if you spend a lot of time comparing. So I would say, go to Romans 12:2 that says, do not let the world squeeze you into its mold. And so what we want to do is be counter-cultural to the prevailing culture around us, which is the default setting in our culture and our world is to compare and to compete. But God is calling us to be above that, to be trans-cultural. Now, if you think about it, if we can be trans-cultural, then it actually minimizes some of the racism and some of the elitism and some of the other issues that we really want to challenge. If you can say, I want to be about the kingdom of God, it gives us a totally different set of values. I think if we can talk about that, and maybe if we have teenagers, we don't come with the answer, but we come to our kids with the question. Wow, I'm not really sure how to be transcultural above, the culture here in my work and in this town. How do you guys see that happening at your school? Then it becomes a conversation of value in our homes.
Feels to me like we're talking about, I love the idea of being transcultural. I love the idea of not letting culture set the trends for us. But I want to know what that looks like. I want to know specifically what are the kinds of things that successful families have on their checklist. What would you say?
Well, for us, one of our key values is honesty. So one of the key distinctive values in our family, because if you want to clarify your family brand, you got to have key values. And this is much like establishing a business when you think about it. Think of all the time that we put into starting a business. Maybe some of you are entrepreneurs starting a business. What's ironic is we spend so much time developing a business, but we don't spend a lot of time thinking ideologically or values-based with our families. I work a lot with Young Presidents Organization, and this was one of the things that came up where I got the idea of developing your family brand, because a lot of these men, mostly the people that we met with as presidents were men, and they would say, wow, I do a good job at work, it's real clear at work, and I get home, it's real fuzzy. So one of the things we want to say is, well, what is your mission? What are your 3 core values? For our family, honesty was one of them. Hey, we don't care if you perform as well, though we prefer that you do, but be honest about it. Don't cheat. So that was something that became very. And
Yeah.
We also we saw that there's a lot of people that were focused on ourselves, focused on themselves, whether they be teenagers or 40-year-olds. So we said, hey, we really want to be a family that's other-centered. So part of our money that we spend is going to go for other people. And so we have different ways that we've done that over the years. So honesty and other-centeredness would be just 2 distinctive values that helped us define our brand.
Yeah, Jonathan, one of the things that we found when you guys came is not only are you great on stage, we hired you to do a job, but we love your family. And your family just feels so, they transitioned really well to this place.
They did, yeah.
Something must have done, what kind of distinctives do you guys have?
I think one of the things that helped us in that transition is I had a gap where I was not doing nearly what I had been doing up until like 2 years before, a year and a half before we came down here. And we kind of became a team a little bit because I was real busy, especially a lot of ministry stuff. And then we had like a year and a half time where we just pulled back from everything and we became kind of a family unit, and just we were together in what we were doing. And I think we just were all teammates. And when we made the decision, it was very early before we even knew about Canyon Springs that we were coming to San Diego. And I told all the kids, I'm like, we're moving to San Diego. I don't know how we're going to figure it out. And they were all in.
Yeah.
They were just Googling, what is San Diego? What's going on down there? And so that was a big part of it, is just I think that we became a team.
Yeah, you had that year, right?
Mm-hmm.
Was it year and a
Yeah.
half, where
Yeah.
it wasn't so ministry focused, wasn't so business focused.
Right.
It was in focus, it was family focused. One of the weird things, excuse me, that you said when you came is, my best friend is probably my son Josiah.
Right. Yeah. It was just that we were just in that season where I noticed that he really responded. He's 16 now, so during that time, 14, 15, he really responded when basically they became my most important group of people.
Right, yeah.
And I know,
Gotcha.
and we noticed that as time was going on. And really, because we pulled back from a lot of other friends and people, not intentionally, just because we weren't doing the scheduled things we were doing, he was kind of my go-to. Like, yeah, let's go shoot hoops, or let's play
Right.
PS4.
Yeah, right.
So I don't know if that should fit in our value system, but that's
Which
what
he
we were-
dominates you at PS4.
Oh man, he beat me twice yesterday.
Yeah. So, okay, Paul, is there anything about the family Murray? Because again, I watch from the sidelines. I see you all the time. I tell people this all the time. Watch Paul, listen to Paul, do what Paul does. What would you say is something that makes
Be very
you guys...
careful with doing anything I do.
There should be a disclaimer, definitely. But, as far as you guys go, how is the family Murray distinctive from culture?
Well, I would say probably one of the biggest things is I make sure my kids know that they belong. And it's very simple. You belong.
How do you do that?
So, and it came from my parents talking to me as a kid. If something went wrong, they'd say, you know what, I don't care what anybody else says. It doesn't matter. It matters to me what God thinks of you and what I think of you. And that's all that mattered. And I never forgot that growing up, no matter what mistake I did, no matter what anybody, it didn't matter, because I knew my dad and my mom loved me. I knew that God loved me. That's all that mattered. And so I've tried to continue to say that to my kids, and my wife and I do this together. And that's a big deal. It's important that they know that no matter what's going on, they're loved, they're cared for, that there's a unit, a family unit there. We are from the land of Murray in Scotland. We have our own castle. They know that we belong. They know that we will embarrass our name, but there's also forgiveness there too. And we make sure we embarrass it a lot, it seems like, but there's always grace and there's mercy and forgiveness, and we come together. But I think that that's a big portion. I hear a lot of families that get upset. They're angry with each other and this and that, and the kids are going one way or the other. And I'm like, at the end of the day, I don't know if they know they belong. They're not sure where their center is.
I had a friend a long time ago. He made a statement about God, where he said, God not only loves me, but he likes me too.
Yeah.
And I wonder, so often, even with my own kids, I'm like, I know none of them would doubt that I love them, but would they doubt that I like them too?
Yeah, that's good. I've heard you say it over and over and over. You're a Murray. We're part of the family Murray. And I'm not sure that everybody talks like that about their family. So I want to move this direction. What I see in culture is a lot of anxiety and stress and more, push. And it feels like what we've talked a little bit about in prepping for this is bringing calm to our family. That calm is very countercultural. Now, what would you say to a family person out there that wants to develop calm within their family?
Well, I think what we need is a priority, and I think hitchhiking off what Paul was saying is we live in a culture where everything's kind of equal, multiculturalism, relativism, and so we lose a hierarchy of values. We just go, whatever, we live in that whatever culture. So everything is optional, everything is accessible, and so it's all there. Well, then it gets really foggy. So I think it's really good to have a priority because Scripture is hierarchical. And so let me just show versus tell. Let's say that you're my son, and this is what I've said to our daughters growing up. I said, Jack, you're my son, and I love you, and I always want you to remember, you come third. God comes first.
Yeah.
Mom and my marriage comes second, and you, my beloved son, are third. That's heretical in our culture.
Right.
But it's exactly the thing that brings calm and security and predictability and hierarchy. Because what's going to happen if we have a child-centered home and we raise them up on that pedestal? It's called idolatry.
Right, that's right. Now, if you're just listening to the podcast, Tim just put his arm on my shoulder and it was super awkward, just so you know. But it is a guy with a pork pie hat put his hand on my shoulder. That was weird. Now, but you're absolutely right, because it's all about the kid, right?
Yeah.
And we see it happen at church. Hey, we haven't seen you in 4 months. Why? Because of soccer.
Right.
And, I know, Paul, your kid plays hockey. That's easy to just push everything aside for hockey. And yet, I'm going to lobby a softball, right? Your son just played in what?
State championships?
State championships. And yet, you guys are still here in church.
Right.
That's right. Somehow made that work.
We just try to make the balance.
Yeah.
So there will be Sundays that he will not always be here, but he will definitely be at Oasis, which is our midweek
Right.
youth group
Yeah.
stuff. So when I was a kid growing up, I went to a church. My dad was a pastor, and he made it very clear there's nothing that goes on a Sunday except for church. So you couldn't do homework, you couldn't do sports, couldn't hang out with your friends. It was all God, all day. That was it. No
Okay, come on, help us out. Help us out. How would he say that, though? He wouldn't say it like
yeah.
that. Come on.
That was miserable, actually. But I just remember my hockey career ended very quickly because it was all Sunday. And so when we started playing, I said to Beth, we have to balance this if we're really going to
Sure,
do it. Because
yeah.
I don't want him to hate God
Right.
or hate the
Yeah,
church.
yeah.
Because I grew up loving God, but not real happy with the church.
Okay, yeah, I got you. I do. I get that. All right, Paul. Tim, we talked about a couple different things that are the enemies of calm.
Right.
Busyness, overcommitment, fear of saying no, that being uncomfortable with reflection, silence, and stillness. Talk into that for a second.
There's a verse in Isaiah says, "Be still and know that I am God." I've thought a lot about that because we're not comfortable being still. And if you think about the second part of that, you can't really know God unless you're still. Some of us are afraid to be quiet and still and just have some time of reflection because we're going to think about stuff that we don't want to think about. A lot of us are driven because we're trying to get away from pain or failure or whatever, wounds from the past. And we just want to go, hey, I want to go. Because if I stop, I kind of freak out, my anxiety goes up, or I can't be calm. But that verse says, be calm, be quiet, be still, and know that I'm God. So then the resource becomes not ourselves, but God. So one of the great sources of calm in a hurried culture is scheduled stillness to realize that you aren't, the resource, that God is. So if we can figure out ways to model calm in front of our children and teenagers, we're on the way. Because we're just saying, hey, I'm going to have like a spot out here where we're just going to focus on God, like Paul's illustration. Sunday mornings, most times we're going to try to be at church, and we're going to take time just to reflect and think about God instead of all the other things that we do all week.
It's funny. How many of you guys have had this experience where your kid comes to you and says, "I'm bored"? Anybody? Yeah, like everybody. In fact, we just adopted a kid, and it did not take her long. She'll just come to us, "I'm bored," and the idea is, entertain me. Take me to get air. Let's go to Chuck E. Cheese. Actually, her go-to move is shopping. Within 1 year of this adopted kid, she loves shopping. It's amazing. And yet we have been talking, and we talk to counselors about all the things that we go through. In fact, that's what I would challenge all of you guys to do, is to have somebody like that. In fact, Tim is a parent coach, and you guys can do that with him, and we'll get you information on how you can do that. We'll put that on the show notes, but we'll also you can go speak to Tim, because he does that. But one of the things that our counselor said is, you're not responsible for her boredom. It's just this taking that moment of stillness and allowing that to happen.
I would say if you have kids that say that to you, or teenagers, just go, "Sweet, I nailed it." Because you don't want to feel like you got to fill that time up. You can just go, "Oh, well, figure out something to do. I'm going to go do this," and turn and walk away. Okay,
tell them how to sharpen their machete.
Machete. So I didn't know what I wanted to be when I grew up. I graduated from college, and I was going to graduate school, but I wasn't sure I was going to the right graduate school. So I thought, I don't know what I want to do. So I had this opportunity to go teach on the island of Roatan, and I'm a big ocean person, so I was in the Caribbean. I just felt God was calling me to the Caribbean for some reason. And so, I mean, it's an easy call, right? So I went there when I was 22, and I was teaching these high school and middle school students. It was a lot of fun. I only taught till noon, had a lunch, then a siesta. So far I could do all those things. And then after the siesta, we played football, soccer. And so, but then we had to cut back La Cancha, which is this football field, every once in a while, because this jungle kept encroaching on it. So part of our PE at the school was to hand these 13, 14, and 15-year-old boys machetes. So I don't know if it'd fly here at Thurgood Marshall, but it worked because they had grown up cutting back the jungle with their machetes. And so I'm 22, and I'm in pretty good shape, and I'm just working hard, cutting back my section of it, and I'm turning around looking at my students going, flojos, which means lazy, and because I'm going, man, they're stopping. Every 5 or 10 minutes, they're stopping, they're sitting in the shade. I'm going, man, why can't they keep up with me? They were sitting in the shade, sharpening their machete, and then they went back to the work, and they would do an area 3 to 5 times bigger than what I was doing. Well, they were used to working in that heat and that humidity. They knew that you can't keep working unless you take time to sharpen your machete. So I think Steve Covey heard me tell that story sometime, because he put that in his book, Sharpen Your Saw. What is his, what's his book? Yeah, 7 Habits. Yeah. So take time to sharpen your machete.
Right. Okay, so one of the things that we talked about in developing this family brand is it seems like there's a uniqueness to our family, but also that they really desire consistency. Doing the same things over and over and over again. And we've just become parents again. We adopted. I used to tell my people, hey, we're expecting, because we're adopting this kid. We've had to relearn, and everything revolves around consistency and doing the same things. Jonathan, are you guys family dinner people?
We're not. We have consistent routine. I remember Josiah fell asleep more often in the car seat than he did in his bed, because of just how on the go we were. And it's funny, because one of the things I feel like that I'm hearing, and one of the things that I'm thinking through and processing my own short season of teenagers that are left in the house is, it does seem like family gets the leftovers, right, from everything else that's going on. Like we'll schedule everybody else, But I mean, I'm around my family a lot, but it all depends on how tight you schedule everybody else, is how much you're giving your kids and your wife and your family. And so it's just thinking through that, like, how do we schedule our people? How do you schedule the Murray Castle and get together with them, that kind of thing.
How are you guys at consistency, Paul?
I think we're actually pretty good. Every Sunday, my wife asks, what does everybody want for dinner for the course of the week? And we all throw out our ideas, and then she goes shopping on Sunday, so she has everything prepared for the week. And then...
Can you say that one more time? I don't think my wife heard that.
Yeah. My wife's pretty amazing. But then, like, we're out every night of the week. So for sports, or church, or school, every night. And in fact, I just said it the other day. I'm like, we had a weird night where we were all home. It was shocking. We didn't know what to do with ourselves.
Right.
So we found Netflix. But it was, we always have dinner as a family, even if it's at 4:30. Sometimes it's at 7:30, but we always have dinner as a family. That's a big deal to us. We just kind of catch up or find out what's going on or what's not going on. No cell phones, everything's turned off, left to the side. In terms of calmness, there's no yelling in our family. If you're angry or something like that, you don't yell at your kids to get in the car. There's none of that. It's calm. If there's a problem, it's a whisper in their ear, you know. When you get home, but in all seriousness,
Just for the rest of you guys who are listening, there's yelling in our home. Just so you know. Just so you feel better.
Yeah, but in all seriousness, there just isn't. And that was more my family than, I'm not sure about your family, but that was my family growing up. My dad never raised his voice. There was the sound of his belt coming out of the belt at times, but so, you know, the anticipation of death was worse than death itself at times. But there was a calmness there. And
Tim, talk to me about scheduling, predictability, regularity. How should that look?
Well, I think it's helpful. I think it produces a secure kid. I think you have to be rigid. But what they found out is one of the characteristics of a healthy home is predictability and consistency. One of the things when they did another survey, they said, what is the most annoying thing about your parents? And it was like overwhelmingly, like 70% or 72% of them said, when my parents are inconsistent, it just drives me crazy. So if you're going to introduce this idea of predictability or family meal or something, realize they're not going to like it, but then they will. So you're going to get some resistance because you're going to have to say, put down your screen, put down your, whatever, your game, your phone, and we're going to have a meal. But what they found out in the research, several different universities did research, if you can have a family meal 3 to 5 times a week, it doesn't have to be dinner, it can be all over the weekend, and you talk for about 20 minutes, and you have a good conversation, you're not like disciplining the kids, and the kids are sharing their opinions on things. Kids who grow up in a home like that will do better at school. They'll do better at sports, they'll do better at the arts, they'll get along with people, they'll actually make better choices, and they'll get along with you. So to me, it's worth fighting for. I know it's difficult. Our daughters did sports, and so sometimes, we ate a lot of hot dogs or pizza from the snack, shop at the gym or out on the track. I mean, it really wasn't, organic or paleo, but it got us through the times, and we would actually, I remember sitting there at tournaments, as a family, huddled in the corner of a gym, having a meal together just so we could talk. And I think there are ways you can creatively pull it off. It doesn't have to be in the dining room with, candles and things like that.
Candles, I like that. That's
You don't
funny.
use candles.
This never happened. Yeah, like our family china. The family china we're using for a special occasion, like if the Pope comes over or something. We've never used it. So we're kind of wrapping this up, and I challenged you guys to come up with what are a couple of things that make your family brand unique. And so now's the time, if you got something that made your family brand unique, what is it? Jonathan?
Oh man, my wife's sitting right there. She's like, "What do we do that's unique?" For us, I mean, I feel like we're trying to hold on to this team thing. I mean, and I have a kind of an entrepreneurial heart, and so I'm kind of always talking to my kids in that way. and just being like, you know, you could just go out there and get some kind of regular job and go out there, you know, if that's what you want to do, but you can create. And I'm always pushing that. And I feel like my boys have bought into it fully. And so we're just always kind of challenging each other with ideas and sharing that kind of thing. So
Yeah, so entrepreneurial. kind of.
yeah. And it's just like, and I think part of that is just looking at, like we talked about at the beginning, looking at culture and the demands of culture and saying it's good to be on the outside of that.
So here's the crazy thing. When Asher came, Asher just decided, he's 15 right now, right?
He's 15,
He's
yeah.
15.
Yep.
He decided he was going to take over our neighborhood and going door to door.
Yeah, he knocked on almost every door in the neighborhood. Hey, can I wash your car? Anything else? You know, and almost everybody said no to him.
I was one of those that said no to him.
But then Jack's neighbor is the one who was even asking just like 2 days ago, hey, where's your son been? I got some work that I need to get done. So he's just that one that just knocks on doors, and he'll do any project, and he's kind of got that reputation. He's actually not quite 15 yet, so he's almost 15. He's been doing this, and that's just something, he gets that idea, and he's one who runs with it. My other son runs with it less, but he gets more ideas.
Okay,
So-
right, sure, right.
But that's just something I think that's in us, is just that, you know, how do we stand against culture in a sense? And,
Yeah. How about you, Paul?
I think I've heard the phrase and quoted different ways, but if someone's on their deathbed or they're under their days, in fact, even at the funeral yesterday for Mrs. Bush,
Okay, yeah, Barbara Bush.
Barbara Bush, thank you. They were talking about the fact that at your deathbed, you don't care about how much money you make, how much, whatever you've done to be
Right.
successful. What they care about is who's with you.
Yeah.
And so that's a big deal to me. As a value, as a dad, like I'm just gonna be there. And I realize I'm giving up some of my finances. I know that. I know that I probably invest more time than some people, but I think of myself as more of a coach than as a dad. And so that I'm gonna watch my kids do what they do, and I'm gonna be cheering for them on the sidelines. And when they fall, I'm gonna let them fall. But I'm also going to be the one encouraging them to get up and learn from it. But I'm a coach first and foremost, whether it's a spiritual coach or as a dad coach, or making sure that they see just how much I love their mom. You know, I will kiss her, I will grab her butt in front of them, I will embarrass my children by how much I show affection to my wife, because I want them to see that she's important to me.
Right.
And
Right.
so that's part of it, but it's important that my kids, that I spend that time, because they're going to be gone soon.
Yeah.
And my goal is to get them out of the house.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't mean
Tim?
that in a bad way.
Right, right.
But to prepare them for life.
Tim, what about your family?
Well, very similar. We want honesty, like I said earlier, and we value creativity. We all try to affirm each other's uniqueness and creativity. We like to do things. And fun. We try to make it a priority to be together. We sold our house that we had in Thousand Oaks, moved down the hill to a smaller home in Camarillo to be next to our daughters and their husbands and our grandsons. So it was an intentional investment to build relationships and have fun together.
Yeah. Okay, so let me give you one. Mine feels like the lamest of all those being shared, but I'm going to tell it to you anyway. It comes out of cheapness. We vacationed at Grandma's. And it sounds amazing if Grandma lives in San Francisco, but Grandma lived in Green Valley, Arizona, just south of Tucson, just north of Mexico. And we would go during summers. It's 115 degrees. And if you've ever been to Green Valley, Arizona, there's nothing. Honestly, there's a movie theater. There's the White Elephant thrift store that we would always go to. My children would sleep on the floor. But we went every year for two reasons. One, it was super cheap, and free babysitting, all right? But one of the things that we've kind of learned is that the second most important voice in my kids' lives is not a coach and it's not a teacher, it's a grandparent. And my kids adore Grandpa and Grandma. In fact, they think Grandpa is the funniest person alive, and I'm nowhere near that. And he tells the same jokes, like if you just stub your toe, oh, we got to call the tow truck. I mean, like every time. Every time.
That's pretty funny, though.
Now you're joining. You think Grandpa's funnier than me too. Come on, man. But they were involved in our kids' lives, and they're valuable. And that was part of our family brand, and we just wanted to keep that as part of it. We didn't go to St. Martin's. We went to Grandma's. Now, a lot of great things, a lot of great words. If you need Tim, we'll put stuff on the show notes on how you can reach hold of Tim. But there's a lot of things that we've challenged you to do. But if you are present with your kids, if you value them, if you don't let culture stand in your way, you don't let them decide what you're going to do, you will get
10 steps further.
All right, guys, thank you. All right, let's give it up for Tim.